Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to our Career Accelerator Q&A. Really glad to have you joining us. We're going to just make sure we're getting all set up over here. We are going to be streaming across LinkedIn and Instagram and YouTube. So hopefully that is all coming up here. Just going to take a quick look and make sure that is all showing up as planned. Let me just make sure I'm here over on LinkedIn. There we go. Okay, I think we are live wherever we need to be. Thank you guys for joining. I hope you're having a great week and really happy to spend some time with you and answer some burning career questions that you might have. And if you are new here, well, welcome. This is our weekly Career Accelerator Q&A that is really meant to support you and give you really actionable guidance that you could take and run with in unlocking and achieving higher levels of growth in your career. So you're definitely in the right place if that sounds good to you. We do tend to get some questions ahead of time that I can take first, but please know that this is an area for you to ask questions and make sure that you're getting unblocked on things that are stopping you right now in your career where you're feeling frustrated. If you're new to me, my name is Tiffany. I am a CEO and career coach, and I really love working with you and empowering you here to remove any type of guesswork in getting you to that next level in your career. So maybe for some of you, you're really striving for that next level of growth in your organization, maybe struggling with some of those internal dynamics that are not necessarily working in your favor, maybe feeling stuck or like you've hit a plateau. Maybe some of you are looking to transition into a new opportunity. So either which way, we just want to make sure you have what you need and get your questions answered and have a little fun while we're doing it together. So please say hi in the chat wherever you're joining us from, whether on LinkedIn, Instagram, or YouTube right now. And maybe as we're getting started, let me know what's your biggest challenge right now that you're facing in your career. Let's kind of get a quick pulse of what's kind of coming up for you. If there's like one thing that you feel like you really need that help on right now, what is it? Some themes I've been seeing from our community members this week has been around some around networking and just feeling more comfortable reaching out to people without it feeling like icky or like you're asking something. Other themes that I saw this week was around communication, but especially in speaking with senior leaders in your company and making sure you're getting the support that you need. That's created some intimidation for those who were submitting questions around that. But just really curious also to get a pulse from all of you. Really appreciating you guys spending time here together on your Friday, and I want to make sure you get the most out of this. So all questions are welcome as they pertain to your career and life and where you're at right now. Hey, Helen, great to have you here. Thank you so much. I see that you're seeking a new opportunity in Naples, Florida. That's very exciting. Let us know how that's going for you. Let us know if you're having any blockers there and stepping into that next role. Always happy to help. I see some comments coming over from Instagram, from Tabitha, networking and time management. That's a really good one. We could definitely dive into that. I'd love to share some insights with you on time management. Maybe, Tabitha, if you don't mind sharing, what areas of time management are you most constrained with? Is it knowing like what to do and when? Is it feeling like overloaded and so you don't have enough time in a day to get things done? Is it more a matter of like prioritizing and having a better game plan with that? If you could maybe give me a little bit more context, I'd be happy to share some ideas and strategies you can use right now. And for anyone who hasn't shared already, please do let me know what the biggest challenges that you're facing right now in your career. Let's talk about it. Let's get you unblocked and make sure that you're being set up really well. We have one here from Deshix. I'm from India. I have a work visa to US, but my company is not sending me to the US projects. How do I let them know that I want to contribute in the US? That's a great question, right? I think being very vocal about your desires with that is something you're going to want to do as soon as possible, especially since you've kind of gotten more of the back end visa work already laid out. This is where you want to quite literally share it with your boss, maybe even your HR team or anybody else in your company that has a level of influence of which projects that you're put on, to let them know, hey, look, I'm at a point where I do want to get more involved in US based projects. I've sort of done that back end work to help position me for that. What would be the concrete next steps to help me do that in the next month, or help me transition to that in the next month? You really want to be specific with timeline so that it's not just something that's going to happen eventually, but rather like, no, 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 like I want this to happen sooner than later. So can you please help me make that happen sooner than later? But we want to make sure that your company is also in line with that, right? If there's something that's being blocked or someone doesn't believe that you're ready to be put on those projects, or there's something standing in your way, you want to find that out. So asking for that feedback is actually really important. And it's a good moment of the year to do that, right? It's year-end timing. If your company is on a January to December fiscal year, this is where a lot of those kind of career decisions are happening, and especially leading into the upcoming year, right? So I would encourage you just to have that conversation if you haven't already, and be very explicit in what you want, why you want it, and the timeline you want to work towards, and simply ask if there's any gaps that are possibly standing in your way with regards to that. Okay? So that's a big one. I like liking these comments coming through. I see also, hey, Anna Joyce, great to have you here. Helen saying, I need a little guidance. I've never worked for a company or organization that had an actual DEI program. How do I answer an interview question about this topic? Yeah, well, it kind of depends which type of question they're asking about it. But if that's something that's really important to the organization, which is actually a really good thing, you might want to draw reference to organizations you've worked with and whether they've emphasized that in the past or even haven't emphasized that in the past, and why you actually believe it's a really good thing that this is at the forefront of what they're doing to really promote diversity and equity and inclusion on the inside. You could even share like an example in your career, Helen, where you felt like that wasn't the case, and how much you would have liked to see things done differently to allow for X result. And so you can draw it back to this organization and show them that this is something that you value and that you take seriously, and give them a sense of how that would show up for you in your work. Like if this is something that they're expecting you to manage, that's one thing. Maybe give me a little context, Helen, of exactly the role that you're targeting. That'll help me. But overall, you want to show them what you're going to do about this. Because if it's something that's important for them, you need to have a very clear answer of what you're going to do, maybe how you're going to do it, and the type of result that you hope to gain. But ideally, if you can root that into a former example that shows that you've actually done something like this before, even if it's not exactly the exact context, but a similar parallel, that's a good thing to pull from. Okay. Let me see here. Some other good points coming through. Okay, so Tabitha saying, yeah, feeling overloaded and prioritizing tasks. So a good way to better manage your time, and this is not just for Tabitha, but for anyone else that's feeling a little bit strapped for time when it comes to prioritizing. A good way of looking at it is a bit of the 80-20 rule to start. Okay. So meaning that you want to put your time towards like the 20% of things that's going to actually drive 80% of the impact. Okay. So if you're feeling like you're overloaded, there's so much to do, there's not enough time in the day, which is probably your case with this, Tabitha, what you're going to want to do is actually look at your week and probably do a time audit. Okay. This is one of the most effective things you can do to realign your work week and your focus, plus get your support from your boss. So what you're going to do is you're going to conduct a time audit for 1 week. Okay. It's very simple. You're essentially going to track quite literally Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday by day, but also by hour of the day of what tasks you're doing in each of those hours every single day for 1 week. Okay. I know it sounds a little bit manual, but trust me, it's going to benefit you big time, because by the end of that week, so let's say you do this going into next week, by next Friday, you're going to have, let's say, an Excel sheet with that time audit complete. So Monday to Friday with task list down the side and your hour blocks that are showing, okay, Monday at 9 a.m. from 9:30, this is what I was doing. And you're going to just track that. By the end of the Friday, you're going to take now a step back. And what you're going to do is actually color code the tasks that you filled into that time audit by order of priority and importance. Okay. So you're going to maybe create yourself a little color legend So maybe green being like big priority, big importance, and in terms of the impact in that 80-20 role. And then you're going to also color code in yellow and then maybe even red, especially the ones in red, the tasks that are actually not adding much value, that are maybe very menial or repetitive tasks or things that are inefficient. And you're going to have this color coding grid now of your time audit. And the final piece of the time audit for you, Tabitha, is you're going to then take the percentages of your work week, of all the hours that you put into that work week, broken down into those different categories of prioritization. So maybe what you're going to see, Tabitha, that by the end of your week in that time audit, actually like 50% of your time was put towards red, meaning like non-value added types of things, maybe following up on fires, emails, being stuck in meetings, right? Whatever it is. Whereas only maybe 20% of your time was actually focused on things that are strategic in your role, that are going to move the business forward, right? I'm giving this as a bit of an arbitrary example, but you're probably understanding where I'm going with, where when you see that and you now present that to your boss and you say, hey, look, boss, Michelle, I'd love to talk with you about the time and workload that I'm taking on right now in my work. I had a sense that I was feeling like there was a lot coming on at one time and that prioritization wasn't as clear as I'd like it to be. And so what I've done is I've taken the initiative to put together a time audit where I took a full week example of how I'm spending and dedicating my time as it relates to the business. And I wanted to share that with you so that you have a better sense of where my time and energy could be much better utilized. And when you share this time audit in like a black and white perspective, it is very hard for your boss to deny that things can be improved, right? And so as you're sharing that, Tabitha, you don't want to just share it and dump a problem on your boss and say, so fix this for me. You want to be solution minded. So you want to say, so this is the situation. We agree, probably not ideal, that 50% of my time is actually not really moving the business forward and keeping me stuck in the mud. What I would like to recommend moving forward is what follows. And you'd have a few ideas of what you would maybe remove from your plate, maybe delegate to someone else, maybe deprioritize for this quarter. But you are now taking an active stance in doing that, which is wonderful because you're able to take a front driver's seat in your own career and rework your workload and priorities with the alignment of your boss and in a way that betters the business. So it's a win-win. So I highly recommend that for you, Tabitha, but for anyone else who's really feeling challenged or overloaded in their work or with time management or lack of priorities, to do a time audit as your business case, have that reflection even for yourself, and then use that strategically to your advantage so that you can better improve where you're putting your energy, where you're putting your time, and have something more sound to go off of with talking with your boss. Okay, so let me know, Tabitha, if that helps. But I think that's just really, really important. Yeah. We have another one here from Ahmad, controlling stress with management. Yeah. So that's a big one. That actually came up a lot this week in my community too, with some themes and questions when talking with senior leaders or working with senior leaders. Your management probably has a certain way that they want to do things and certain priorities that they have. And so in terms of controlling stress, one of the biggest breakthroughs that you can have, Ahmad, with this is remembering that their job is to move the business in the right direction. And so they don't want you to feel stressed. They don't want you to feel overwhelmed, and they don't want you to feel like destabilized in front of them. What they want is for you to help inform them to make better decisions, right? That's your role. So when you start thinking of it that, hey, I'm actually the closest person to my area of the business. Sure, my management team, they're experienced, they've been around the block, they know a lot, but they're not as close to what you do. And they're counting on you to share that, to update them, to give them insight, to help move the business forward. So when we start shifting it in that way, that's actually not anything to be stressed about. It's more of our duty as an employee to share this information and to be prepared and to know what our primary messages are that need to be passed at any one time. That's going to help you really ease that stress. Another shift very closely tied to that, Ahmad, is remember that it's not a me versus you mindset. That creates a lot of stress when you're working with management. If you're like, okay, it's me against them, that's the wrong way to look at it. What you want to do is shift to a more us versus the challenge, problem, or opportunity mindset. So when you start going into these conversations or meetings with your management and you're like, okay, we're actually working towards the same thing. Like they want this, I want this. So we are in it together. And so how do we approach this problem, approach this challenge, approach this opportunity? And so now your role is to guide them to get to that outcome, right? To get to the other end. But it's not about coming from a place of stress, it's coming from a place of empowerment because you're seeing that together, you're going to be able to do that. It's not that you are against them trying to feel like you're always in defense mode, right? The other quick thing to remember here about controlling stress with management is just know that they were also once in your shoes. They are a little bit removed from your part of the business because they're not as close to it, but they're also craving that conversation and like connection with you, right? I can tell you, even with our clients and the way that we serve them, it's been really instrumental in building their confidence to speak with senior leaders. One of my clients just the last few weeks did a complete 180 with the president of her department who initially didn't have a very good relationship with her and was blocking her progression. And she's like, Tiffany, I don't even know how to fix that. Like, I feel like her mind is made up. I've been passed over for promotions for 5 years. How am I going to even get her to support me? And we worked very specifically on her communication strategy and how to reframe that in being much more in the lens of what's in it for this president and how to build a better relationship and connectivity. And now, within a matter of a few short weeks, she turned someone who was against her into her biggest advocate, who is now quite literally going from one department to the other as the president and saying, you need to bring her into this role. You need to open up this opportunity. Let's get this going. So that's how powerful this is when you realize, hey, it's not me versus them. It's how can we work towards this and build those connections. And so it helps alleviate a lot of that stress when you start seeing it that way. I hope this helps, just bringing a different perspective because you have so much to bring to the table. And I never want you to feel like you shouldn't be owning that, right? This is your career, and building those really good relationships with your management team is going to serve you extremely well as you create that support system. Yeah. Okay. Hey, David, good to have you here. Wonderful. Let me see what else we have. I think there's some good points coming through and some great questions, guys. I was essentially asking if you could share what your biggest challenge is right now in your career, or what do you feel is really blocking this next level of growth that you want to achieve, because we want to make sure that we are supporting you in that, and really getting you in the right direction. A lot of the times, guys, it's not complicated. And so much can be solved with the right communication. It really can. And I'm so glad you're here because you are going to have a leg up over everyone else who's not joining our live right now, in setting you up really well in your work environments and new opportunities you're pursuing. Okay, so we've talked about those things. These were some good points coming through. Oh, you're so welcome, Deshix. I'm so glad that you found that helpful. And for what it's worth, guys, if any of you are interested in, getting more support, really having more one-on-one guidance to unlock and achieve those higher levels of growth without the guesswork and just know what to do and how to do it, you're always more than welcome to book a call with me and my team. If you are joining us over on Instagram, please feel free to just comment call in the chat, and you'll be able to book that with me. I'll send it to you via our DMs. And if you're joining us on LinkedIn, really easy. You could actually just go book an appointment right on my LinkedIn profile page, and I'd love to speak with you. Oh, good, Tabitha. I'm really glad to hear that you're going to be doing the time audit. It's a great exercise, honestly. I highly recommend it for anyone who is feeling like just overwhelmed, because the last thing you want to do is just dump problems onto your boss. They already have their own stuff going on. And if it's still things that have to get done, you need to come with solutions. But the best way to do that is have like a case in point business case that you can lean into. So let me know how it goes for you, Tabitha, but more power to you. I'm really glad you're going to be implementing that. Yeah, some other questions that were coming up that I've seen is, even just how to approach executives in general. I know that can feel intimidating, especially depending which level of career stage you're at. But something I came to realize early enough on in my time at L'Oreal, and what we really coach our clients on in getting their promotions to happen a lot faster in their organizations, is realizing that you can be an ally to your executives. And when you are positioning your recommendations and strategies in a very succinct way by providing the context, why am I even sharing this? Why is this important to you? Why does this matter? Then shifting into more of an hypothesis driven problem solving to what you want to bring forward. Okay, so this looks like you're building on the context, but you're also sharing a hypothesis as to what you think is going to work and why you believe that's going to work in that way, and why that's impacting the strategy and recommendations that you're proposing. And then shifting into the next steps. That might be an alignment that you need, an approval that you need, a brainstorm that you're going to have, a resource that you need allocated to you, right? But just by following this three-part structure, it's very effective because you're covering all your bases with your executives, you're keeping things on track, and you're positioning yourself to get to that outcome faster with the support that you need. It really doesn't have to be more complicated than that, but we often get in our own way where we feel like everything has to sound super fancy and polished, and I have to share so much information. But that's actually the backwards way of doing it. Less is more always with your executives. Do not give them more than they need to go off of. They are sharp. They are thinking 20 steps ahead. You don't want to give them more than they need to be able to make decisions with you and support you and get to the outcomes that you're working towards. So you're much better off sharing less and then building on that and volunteering more than sharing more and then having to backpedal. Okay. All right. I see some other great points here coming over from LinkedIn. This one is from David. Greatest challenge is getting interviews for jobs I apply for that I am well qualified for. Oh, interesting, David. What do you feel has been your challenge in that, just out of curiosity? Sometimes it's not just about the qualifications on paper, but I'd say, especially in the market today, just putting in those applications or having things polished in a resume, as an example, it's often not enough. We need to build out more of those advocates who can also go that extra mile. So, networking is a really important piece here, David, around having people also vouch for you. It's the number one strategy that's helped our own clients land their roles really quickly this year. It's, yes, having all the marketing materials, if you will, polished, their resume, their LinkedIn profile, how they speak, how they communicate and articulate their track record. But there might be a gap here for you, David, as to, getting the interviews for the roles that you're qualified for. Because if it's just getting the interviews, it's still at that front end stage where there's either maybe a gap in how we're communicating your background and track record, but also getting you the right people and advocates in your corner to get you at the top of the pile, right? To just get you in front of those decision makers. You were saying hundreds of applicants. I try to use the network inside people who work there. Yeah, absolutely. That's a big part of it. But also don't discount your own network and your own connections, because so often there's a lot of power in that, of activating people who you already know, maybe former colleagues, former mentors, former bosses, just even combing through your own LinkedIn connections of seeing people in your target roles, in your target departments, in your target organizations, because that could actually go a lot further. And again, that's been something that's helped our clients so much in tapping into that first and foremost, and to their pleasant surprise, actually having some great inbound leads that have led them into their new roles that they're in. So that's something. Don't get discouraged by the hundreds of applicants. It's only to reinforce that relying on applications is just not the way to do it anymore. It might serve a small purpose in getting you in front of the right people, but it's rarely the case that that's the thing that's going to help you. If anything, having that resume is going to be great when you are networking with people and you have something that you're really confident in sharing that can support that. But there's likely some good opportunity there, David, I'd say, on maybe refining your networking approach and how you're reaching out to those individuals. Probably the biggest tip I can share when networking is to make it more about them before it's anything about you. And I know that sounds sometimes counterintuitive when we're like, but I need a new opportunity. It is about me. It is. But you need to build goodwill first. You need to build a relationship before someone is just going to offer you a job, right? And so always come from a place of appreciation and gratitude or respect of what the other person is doing and lead with that, right? This could sound something like, like, hey, John, I noticed that you are in X role with Y company for the last year. That is amazing. How has that been going for you? I'm also at a point of looking to make a very similar transition, and I would love to learn from your experience, right? So you're starting with something that's clearly very much about them. It's not just a copy paste type of message that will likely lead them to respond to you much more intently. And then you can build on more about their background and what really drew you to them and lead to a more exploratory conversation rather than feeling like, it's all about the application. Yeah. So hopefully that helps, David, but always glad to go into more depth about that. We have another point here from Manpreet from LinkedIn. Even after doing good and generating revenue, still bosses pinpoint and never appreciate what to do in that case. Okay, so for Manpreet, I think what you're gathering here is even if you're doing a good job at like generating revenue, which is, I imagine, an important part of your role, your bosses are pinpointing maybe things that you're not doing or don't really appreciate the work that you're putting in. So this is a really good moment for advocating for yourself and bringing it back to, yes, the needs of the business, but also probably sharing feedback with your boss that you would like to have a little bit more appreciation or recognition for the effort that is being put in versus having that dismissed, right? So this could sound something, Manpreet, like, I can certainly appreciate, the need to drive, the top line revenue in the business, and that's something that we're very much focused on. At the same time, I do believe that I have been driving great results for the business, such as XYZ, and have not really sensed the recognition for those efforts as it pertains to the development goals that I have in my role. And moving forward, I would really like to have that better balanced with some of the areas of improvement that we've discussed. That's really motivating for me. And I want to share that with you as my boss so that you have a better sense of how we can communicate on this moving forward and also focus not just on the improvement areas, but also really help me further strengthen the areas that I'm doing quite well in. Do you see where I'm coming from on that? Right. So you kind of get this alignment question at the end so that you're sharing that feedback. It's important, right? If you're instrumental in driving results and your boss is just the type that's constantly like, okay, but what else can we do? Let's do even better. Let's fix this. They're coming from that place of like always wanting to improve, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. But as a leader, you also need to motivate your team and keep them energized and acknowledge the good things that are happening, not just the bad and the things that can be done better. So I would certainly recommend, Manpreet, approaching that with your boss and doing it in a way that's very empathic, that like, hey, I get it. I know that this is an important area of the business that we need to do and tackle, and that's exactly where my focus is. And I kind of need this from you in return as well, like as your employee, as my boss, this is something that I would expect to have. And it is important for me. That's one of my big motivators. And I do get a sense that we haven't been having as good of a balance there. And I wanted to bring that to your attention, right? So it goes back to what I was sharing, Manpreet, that almost any type of work challenge can be solved with the right communication. We're big on that. It's been really, really pivotal for our clients in helping them unlock different growth levels in their career, overcome really difficult bosses and difficult colleagues and very challenging situations. So, when in doubt, communication is going to be the thing that's going to help you break through. And if you are looking for any more support on that, please feel free to book a call with our team, and we can get to know you better and see, where your goals are at right now and how we can help you get there. You can just go ahead and book the appointment directly from my LinkedIn profile, or if you're joining us over on Instagram or YouTube, you could definitely just comment call, and I will send you the link to book that free clarity call with our team. Thanks so much, guys, also for joining. These are great questions. I see another question here, I think from Hawk Flower. Would be great if you can restate those three exec com structure. Oh, yeah. Okay. So when you're talking to your executives, okay, a good framework that you can follow is this three-part structure. I'm big on threes. For those of you who follow me a lot, you probably gather that. But you really want to start with context. Okay. Context is, why are we even talking about this? What's the current situation? Why does this matter to you? What data point or insight am I pulling from? Okay, so always ground in context. That is so important, because otherwise, if you start just jumping right into what you want to do, they're not going to understand why that's important, why that's relevant. So this context is something that you really need to drive back to your executives' priorities, where their head is at, why that's important for your business, etc. The second piece is be very hypothesis driven in your problem solving. Okay. So this is where you're going to likely lead into your recommendations, your strategies, what you're proposing, but don't just do it like, okay, that's what we should do. Try to create a hypothesis as to what you believe is going to happen by implementing what you're doing, and use that as the basis for your problem solving of why you're recommending what you're recommending. And the third piece is the next steps. So that's where you're going to lead out with, what you need from them. Is it an approval? Is it a alignment? Is it a brainstorm? Is it a financial allocation? Is it a resource that you need? Whatever that might be, that's going to lead into your next steps, where you can then build on that and get that outcome and alignment that you need before you finish that conversation. So, of course, you can build on this. I'm giving this very simply in terms of the structure to follow. There might be more depth that you need to integrate into each of these different components, but I hope that helps for you, Hawkflower, as you're thinking about that and just building a really succinct way of communicating with your executives and management team. Because, as I said, they're very sharp. You don't need to overindulge. You don't need to elaborate so much with tons of detail. In fact, you want to do quite the opposite. You want to be direct and to the point with very much the key messages. And a good way of thinking of this is actually start with the end in mind. So start with the outcome that you need from that conversation, and then work your way backwards of, okay, if that's where we need to get to with my management team, what's the context I need to share that's going to set me up best to get there? So what's the initial info? What's the current state? What maybe competitive information do I need? Whatever it is, right? What's that context? Then that's going to feed it a lot more seamlessly into that midsection of the hypothesis-driven problem solving that you can really implement and state why you believe this is going to work and the action steps that you're proposing to take. And then that's going to much more fluidly go into that final step of the next path forward, right? What do we do from here? What do I need from you? And get that buy-in. If you can do that and really practice that, it's going to help you so much in getting a lot more support and alignment from your executive team and face less resistance. But let's actually talk real quick about resistance, because I know that's come up as I was getting some of these questions from my community this week. And resistance could happen, right? Even despite your best efforts with your executives, you might be there and they're not necessarily on the same page, or you're feeling some kind of disconnect. So you always want to bring it back to first really listening to understand. If they are telling you something or they're not on the same page, don't just automatically jump in and assume that you know what they're asking or thinking. I would much rather that you actually paraphrase back to ensure that you've actually really understood where their constraint is, right? So this could sound something like, okay, thank you so much for sharing that. If I understand well, it sounds like, and then you fill in the blank, it sounds like you're in line with X, but not as sure about Y part of the approach. Is that a fair assessment? And then they're going to say, yes, exactly. And then now you know what to focus on to overcome that resistance, right? If you know it's that one thing, then that maybe means reinforcing another data point tied to that, bringing in another example, showing what you can to actually combat their reservation, right? But you didn't just jump into it. You're actually taking the time to understand so that you can respond a lot more effectively. And what's really cool with this approach is that it shows you're pretty good at thinking on your feet. And coming to the other point, I think it was from Ahmad around being stressed in front of management. This shows you're kind of keeping your cool, right? Like it's pretty stressful in those moments when you're getting challenged or pushback. But when you're actually grounding yourself of saying, okay, let me just make sure I'm really understanding where their hesitation is coming from. Maybe I missed the mark and didn't share something properly. And by just getting that understanding, you can show up so much better in the response that you give. Okay. So, yeah, hopefully that helps you guys. But I can tell you the more that you build that muscle in speaking with your leaders and doing it in a way that feels very natural, it makes everything easier. And this is a huge focus for us with our clients and the way that we support them that quite literally has led to breakthroughs in their growth and income, by the way. So the positive ripple effect of this is quite literally life-changing. But it also just helps you bring out your best self at work. And you can imagine how helpful this is when you're even looking for new opportunities and you're speaking with executives or your eventual manager, right? When you have these structures to go off of and you could just show the value that you can bring to them, that's going to help them see you as part of their team. That's going to help them see you as a solution to what they need. And it's going to help them see you as someone that you're worth investing in, right? And so it just really transversal, whichever way you choose to leverage that. Okay, I have a comment here from LinkedIn user. I don't know the name. I'm not seeing it. Let me just see if I can see it on the back end. I don't see it there. So I'm not sure who this is. But you're saying, I like how you communicate, Tiffany. Effective messaging can really solve for so many of these challenges. It's often in how we frame it. Oh, yeah. So much of the time it's in that, right? It's the how, the delivery. One other downfall that I see a lot in speaking with executives is speaking too quickly, right? That could come from stress. That can come from nerves. I get it. I think we've all been there. Maybe let me know in the chat if you've ever felt like you've spoken really fast in front of an important meeting or executive or leader because you're like, oh my gosh, I just want to get this over with. I'm so nervous. But the problem with that is that can actually diminish the impact of your message. And slowing down and taking pauses is so much more effective, like both in impact, but also in the receptivity of your message. So let's do a quick run through example with me, okay? Let's say I came on to today's Career Accelerator Q&A with you and I said, okay guys, great to be here. So first we're going to run through some questions that I got ahead of time and then I'm going to take some open-ended questions to make sure that you walk away here knowing exactly what to do and how to do it to unlock new levels of growth in your career. That was pretty fast, right? Like you're like, whoa, hang on, slow down a second. Like, let me just catch my breath. Right? But that's often what it could sound like when you're rushing through a presentation with a pretty important stakeholder. And that applies also to interviews, by the way. Now, let's try another approach where you take pauses and you breathe and you bring more impact, right? It's a little bit of public speaking tricks and tips here. Okay? I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to do it much slower, right? Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's Career Accelerator Q&A with me. We're going to start off by taking some questions that came through from my community beforehand and tackle those first. And then I'm going to take over some open-ended questions and make sure that you're walking away with what you need to know so that you can action it coming right out of today's live and unlock new levels of growth for yourself and your career. So you guys can see that was pretty much the exact same thing I said before and after, but the second one was slower. It felt more intentional. There were pauses that helped you to digest it better and receive the information. So let me know if that helps kind of seeing that parallel of a bit of the before and after here. of just how powerful a communication is when you're speaking with these types of stakeholders. I see a point here from Manpreet. I've been following you since long time and you are inspiring. Yes, I'd like to connect further. Oh, well, so happy to have you here, Manpreet, and thank you for your support. It's great to have been able to support you in this capacity. And feel free, I'd love to chat with you. Go ahead and book your call with me. You could go directly on my LinkedIn page to book your appointment. We'd love to chat, my team and I, to get to know you better. And if anyone is joining us over from LinkedIn and YouTube, you could definitely book your call on my LinkedIn page, directly on my website also. And if you're joining from Instagram and you want to set up a free clarity call with me and my team to just get you to that next level of growth and make sure you have all of the support and accountability and daily guidance to get there without the guesswork, just comment call and I'll send you the link to book that in your DMs with me. All right, we're getting through some good questions today. I had some other ones that I was going to bring on, but honestly, I think everyone is pretty on point here today with where you're at. Maybe as a last call, like any other challenges, guys, that you're feeling right now in your career, that's maybe leading you to feel blocked, I should say, or like you're just not where you wanted to be by now at this point in the year. I can't believe it. It's November, guys. We're November 1st. Halloween is over. It's official. We're in the home stretch of the year. Let's make them your best months. Let's make sure that you are set up for so much success and that there's hope for you in what's possible. I want you to bring out your best because you deserve that. Your loved ones deserve that, right? Your whole life deserves that for you. So yeah, let me know maybe as we're rounding off in our live today, if there's any other questions that you guys have or any challenge that you're facing right now that you feel like you really want to work through together. Let me know. Again, this is time for you. I want to make sure that you feel really confident in taking control of your career. That's what it's all about. Earlier this week, I hosted a few keynotes with Microsoft, and there was just a lot of really great breakthroughs from that in building both practical and actionable steps to impact your career and elevate your growth and leadership. But so much of it just comes down to doing the right things the right way. Like, it doesn't have to be more complex than that, but it's also a lot of the things that we never learn how to do. And that's really important. You know, school can prepare us to a degree, but there's so much more in like real life learnings that come from lived experience that I love to share with you because that's what's going to help you get those breakthrough moments. But you have all been so wonderful and so engaged today. I see another point here. Yeah, balancing professionalism with authenticity. So that's one of the challenges that you're facing. I prefer to be direct. Many prefer implied communication. But you know what? There's a time and place for that. There's a time and place for that. I love this, balancing professionalism with authenticity. You have to do you, okay? If you feel like you have to change who you are to succeed in your workplace, it's probably not the right workplace for you because that's not sustainable. That said, and an important fine line here is you need to be able to adapt and especially adapt to your audience. Okay. There's going to be audiences that you speak with who do actually require more direct communication. Executives, for one, are that population. They don't want to sit down and hear a whole life story. They're like, tell me the headlines, tell me what it is that you need, and let's make it happen. Right. Whereas maybe team members that you're working with need a little bit more passive communication, or maybe they need a little bit more small talk, or maybe they feel like you need to ease them into things a little bit more. So that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be direct, but you might need to just give a little bit more adaptability in how you lead into those direct points versus just blurting it out. Because remember, so much of your career success is based around people influencing your progression, people influencing the decisions around your growth, and also the way that you make people feel and the support system you're building. So if you being too direct, sometimes to the wrong audiences, and the way that can hinder the support that they give you, that will backfire. But if you're being direct in a way that still gets to the heart of it, all the better. And I'm going to give you a really quick trick here that is going to become your new best friend. And again, I don't see your name, so I'm not sure who this is. Maybe just let me know in LinkedIn if you can. I just see LinkedIn user on my end. But lead with empathy. If you are a direct communicator, leading with empathy is always just a winning strategy in my books, and it helps our clients so much in improving their communication and relationship building in their career. But lead with empathy first, because that's going to help the other person feel very understood. So you can follow up from that with your very direct message. But at least here you're starting with something like, I can certainly appreciate where you're coming from on X. And then you lead into your direct point, right? Or you could say, I definitely understand XYZ. Again, empathy. But then you lead into your direct point, as opposed to just jumping right into what you need, right? Because that's making it all about you. The point of balancing professionalism and authenticity is that you're doing it in a way that's also bringing people together. And if you can layer that element of empathy in, it's going to help you so, so much. Yeah. All right, guys. Wow, I think we've gotten through all the questions for today. Please let me know if you found this helpful. And if there's any question that we didn't get to, please feel free to drop it in the comments right on the LinkedIn Live, or DM me after as well. And for anyone who is on Instagram, I always save these replays over on my LinkedIn. So if you're not following me there, please do. I share a lot of great content that's very complementary to what I share on Instagram daily, and would love to have you watch the replays as well. I go live here every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern time, to support you in your career questions and make sure that we are supporting you on the things that not a lot of people talk about, but that are what really matters to unlock and achieve higher levels of growth for yourself. So if that's your jam and you're like, I'm here to do that, I want to bring out my best self in my career, I want to open up those possibilities instead of feeling like I'm constantly chasing after them, then that's what we're here to do. And if you like the vibe, well, I love having you here and supporting you and bringing you a lot of positive energy to get you to those points in your career, because you deserve it. So thank you so much, everyone. If you have friends who should be here with us, please invite them. Let them know that this is just a fun time to hang out every Friday, to get some really concrete guidance and support you in the best way possible, to unlock those levels of growth. And thank you, guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Friday and a great weekend. The one exception, guys, just so that you know, I am actually traveling late next week. So we're probably going to take a quick pause and resume back the following week. But if there are any questions that are coming up for you, don't hesitate. Please DM me or send me a note over on LinkedIn. Again, if you want to chat with me and my team, we're more than happy to set up that clarity call. You could go ahead and book that right over on my profile page on LinkedIn, or comment call over on Instagram, and I'll send you the details. So we're going to take a pause for next week, but we will be back that following week to be back for our next Career Growth Accelerator Q&A, and we can't wait to see you here. All right, bye everyone. Thanks for joining and have a wonderful weekend.